Hello all, at another new edition of my video class. Last time we have a overview and study plan for SCRA for CA final, which was well appreciated and many students appreciate the same. So today I am coming with a new topic, the same thing of how to the overview of the chapter and of course the study plan for the same. Yesterday itself I told you that in my previous video I told you about securities law. Security laws you have three chapters, basically three areas you have to study. One is SEBI Act, second one is SCRA, and third one is the SEBI LODR regulations. So today I am going to deal with the overview and study plan of very important topic, SEBI Act 1992. See, unless and until you understand the powers of SEBI, you will not be able to clearly understand the securities laws basis. So one question and one or two OMR questions will be mandatory from this chapter. So it is very important. Little bit lengthy, a little bit detailed. Many provisions you have to study, but it will be an advantage for you to master the security laws area under the economic laws bracket. So we will see what are the important areas and overview of this law. Disclaimer, okay. Coming to Preamble of SEBI Act, this is an act for the establishment of a board. What is the board's name? Board's name is Securities and Exchange Board of India, SEBI, to protect the interest of investors. Fundamental is protect the interest of investors in securities market. Second point is and to promote the development of securities market. Third point is to regulate the securities market, and matters connected therewith. So in a nutshell, what is SEBI Act? SEBI Act is a central government law passed by the Parliament in 1992 in order to ensure that the securities market has been well protected. The basis, objective or overview of this law is investor protection. What is that? Investor protection. Who are that investors who are investing in our securities market? So the basic thing is protection of investors in the securities market. Point number 2, promotion and development of securities market. Point number 3, regulation of securities market, and matters connected. I will repeat again. What are the 4 cardinal objectives of SEBI law in India? Protection of investors in the securities market, promotion and development of securities market, third one, regulation of securities market, and ultimately for the matters connected thereto. So this is, students, the overview of SEBI law. Basically, it is investor protection and to regulate the securities market, the capital market of India. So I told you SEBI is the parent law for the securities market, for the securities and capital market in India. So SEBI Act gives the teeth to the SEBI as a body, Securities and Exchange Board of India, as to how to regulate and what are the powers for investigation, what are the powers for inspection, etc. and so on. So now we will see the miniature points of what are the areas you have to study. So basically, before we study SEBI law, SEBI Act 1992, the first thing is you should understand clearly the meaning of what is the objective of SEBI, Securities and Exchange Board of India, as we stated now. Now here we go, the study plan. What are the areas you have to study? Basically, of course, objectives. That is the purpose of that is dealt in the preamble. Definitions are not that much important for this chapter or this act, so you can leave that. Okay. Now, very important one is this pack is the first pack you have to study with respect to the administration of SEBI. Usually, one question arises from this pack, so students don't take it lightly. This section 3, section 4, section 5, section 6 is very important. One question is expected from this area. These provisions relates to the management and administration of SEBI itself. What are things you have to study? You have to study the establishment and incorporation of the board. Section 3, management of SEBI. This is very important. There is 11-member, body. So you have to study who are the members of the board. There is a honorable chairman, there is whole time members, there is one member from the RBI, there is one member from the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, there is one member from the Ministry of Finance. Ultimately, total how many members you have to look. So this is very important provision, management of the SEBI. If you remember and if you go into details, you will see ultimately there is 9 members in the board. You can study from your study material. Then this is very important area, term of office and conditions of office of chairman and members. What are the qualifications for the chairman, what are the qualification rates for the members of the board, there are many things like integrity, good standing in the industry, etc., etc. Then this is very important when a member of the SEBI is being removed, and what will be happening to the vacancy of the SEBI, etc. So this slide is very important, students. Basically, you have to study the preamble. Second part, the most important part, is the management of SEBI. What are the things you have to study? Section 3, Section 4. Here Section 4 is very important. The composition of SEBI body is very important. Term and offices of conditions of the members. Chairman and members of the board is very important. The qualification of chairman, the tenure of chairman, the tenure of whole time members is very important. Removal of members, basically that's from the public interest. So this is the part 2. Part 1 is objectives, part 2 is management of SEBI. Now we will move on to the very, very, very important thing, and I will say this is part 3. This is part 3, which is with regard to the functions of SEBI. Very important area. One question is guaranteed in this area, especially with regarding to the inspection or investigation. What are the things you have to study? Functions of SEBI, Section 11. Section 11.1, general functions. 11.2, specific functions. 11.2a, power to inspection. 11.4, strict powers. 11a, prohibition of issue of prospectus. Investigation 11c. This slide, I guarantee you one question from this slide is guaranteed, especially with regarding to these two things. What are the things? Inspection, power to inspection, Section 11.2a, and investigation, Section 11c. Students, take it from me. This is again a very important topic, or third part, where the question may be asked from the SEBI law, and this is with regarding to the functions of SEBI. There are general functions, specific functions, prohibition to issue of prospectus, inspection powers, and investigation power. Mind you, if you don't get time to study, at least study 2 I's. What are the 2 I's? Inspection and investigation. Study the law first, then go to some private books or RTP from the institute. Practice the practical questions which has been asked. Go to OMR sections. Practice the maximum number of OMR questions it's been asked. So that is. This is again part 1 was the objective. Part 2 was the administration management of SEBI. Part 3 is regarding to functions, inspection, and investigation. Now we'll go to the part 4. Part 4 is with regarding to the miscellaneous provisions for the SEBI, especially with regarding to powers with regarding to end research and seizure. It's very important. It's very simple, it's only 3 lines. CD order, that is the cease and desist order. Then you will have a new area called registration of sub-brokers, that is intermediaries, stockbrokers, sub-brokers, share transfer agents, all these sectors, sub-brokers, stockbrokers, share transfer agents, portfolio manager, etc., etc. All these terms we call under the bracket called intermediaries. So Section 12 says that all intermediaries in the Indian capital market should be duly registered with the SEBI. Without registration with the SEBI, no intermediary like bankers, brokers, sub-brokers, share transfer agents, portfolio managers, collective investment scheme managers, STS, etc. cannot work. So that is Section 12 mandates every intermediaries to get registered with the SEBI, and they can function only with a valid certificate of registration in writing from the SEBI. And students, in this slide, this is very important one, which is prohibition and of deceptive devices, and of course insider trading is very important. So these two sections you got to study separately. A practical question may be asked, Section 12a and Section 15g. 12a speaks about prohibition of manipulative and deceptive practices, including insider trading. Here, one thing which I like to say is, your study material or the syllabus does not that much contain to details of insider trading, but we will just read the penalty, that is under 15g. But I would advise my students to study insider trading in detail. You will get notes from the online notes also. You must study the meaning of insider trading. Hello. Hear it carefully. Insider trading, how to go into little bit detail. What are the things you have to study? Apart from penalty under 15g, you have to study meaning of insider trading. Point number 1. Who is an insider? Point number 2. What do you mean by price sensitive unpublished information? UPSI, price sensitive unpublished information you have to study. And then you have to study the penalty. So in insider trading, I like to say, apart from the syllabus you will have for the penalty 15g, you have to study 3 other things. What are the other things you have to study? Meaning of insider trading, meaning of the term insider, and third one is what is price sensitive information, otherwise price sensitive unpublished information. What are the information like balance sheet figures, annual results, expansion plans, major mergers, acquisition, expansion plans, these type of dividend, bonus issue, information with regarding to the bonus issue, rights issue, these things. So insider trading, I would advise you to little bit study, little bit detail. So this is the fourth pack with regard to the miscellaneous aspects. And fifth pack is little bit, the penalty thing which you can even skip, like penalty for fraudulent trade practices, like you can skip. Fifth pack is this one. This is very important with regarding to SAT, Securities Appellate Tribunal. Any person aggrieved from an order issued by an adjudicating officer of SEBI can prefer an appeal to the Honorable SAT, Securities Appellate Tribunal. Very important, you have to study the establishment of SAT, you have to study the composition of SAT, you have to study the qualification members of the presiding officer and members of the SAT. Very important. If a question is not asked from the management of SEBI, then obviously a question will be asked from the management of SAT. So you must study the qualification rights of the presiding officer and the members of SAT, don't forget it. Then you have to study the procedure. What is the procedure? Within how many time limit you have to prefer an appeal from SEBI to SAT? That is 45 days. You will get another extension for 45 days. SAT has to expeditiously dispose the application. If it is not expeditiously disposed, the maximum time limit for giving an order is 6 months. It has the power to dispose the application, it has the power to confirm the application, etc. etc. Little bit procedure wise, please look into it, especially for OMR questions. The time limits for order, the time limits for preferring an appeal is important. So the fifth area how to study is with respect to appellate provisions, with respect to appeal to the Securities Appellate Tribunal. Now coming to the last one. Last pack is, again I told you this already in the previous slide, so I asked you to study the presiding officer's tenure, the presiding officer's qualification, who can be appointed as the presiding officer of the SAT, who can be appointed as the members of the SAT, what is the age limit for members of that, you have to study. So this is very important, 15 detail, you have to study the process. So fifth pack, it is continuing slide, fifth pack with regard to everything with regard to SAT, pin to pistol you have to study. Now a small section here, 15L, right to representation. An appellant need not be presented in person. His case need not be presented in person to the SAT. He can appoint either a qualified chartered accountant, a practicing chartered accountant, or a qualified company secretary, or a qualified cost accountant, or a qualified legal practitioner, advocate. So that is the provision of right to representation. Who can represent a case before the SAT, which is only 3 lines, section 15. And ultimately, the law ends with appeal to the Honorable Supreme Court. You have to study 15 is set, especially the time limit for preferring the appeal to the appeal from SAT to Supreme Court. So what is the route from adjudicating office of SEBI to SAT, then SAT to Supreme Court? So time limit you have to study. There is an extension of time limit, you have to study that time limit also. Friends, this will do the magic. I will conclude the 5 or 6 packs you have to study in the SEBI law, parent law, SEBI Act 1992. Shall I remind you? Start 1. Preamble. What are the objectives of SEBI? Right? Set number 2. Management and administration of SEBI. Set number 3, with regard to functions of the SEBI, especially with regard to inspection powers and investigation powers. Then some other areas are there, like you have to see the insider trading, some that deceptive practices, non-issue of prosperous. That is the 4th area. 5th one is appellate provisions, SEBI to SAT appellate provision, composition of SAT, tenure of SAT members, tenure of the presiding officer of SAT. That's ultimately preferring an appeal to from SAT to the Supreme Court. So I should say, for SEBI Act, every area is important. More specifically important, management of SEBI, the composition of SEBI and composition of SAT. Their tenure, members' tenure, how they are removed, if the tenure exists, who will be reappointed, etc. The procedural things of the administration. And second pack, very important. What I am saying now, I am listing the most important thing out of the 6 packs I have discussed. 1. Management of SEBI and management of SAT, administrative areas, their membership areas, etc. etc. And second one is powers of inspection and investigation of SEBI. Very, very important. If you look the previous question papers, most of the questions will be focused on the investigation and inspection powers of SEBI. So friends, this will do the magic of the overview of SEBI Act 1992. Next I will come with a video of important areas and study plan for SEBI LODR regulation. With these 3 videos, you will get whole control over the securities laws areas under the economic area, under the paper corporate and economic laws. Stay healthy. Thank you.